Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of DejaVue.
It's your favorite Vue podcast. You just don't know it yet. I am Michael Thiessen. I am a full-time Vue educator and instructor for Mastering Nuxt. And my co-host Alex is here as well.
Hey everybody, yes, I'm Alex. I'm a web engineering consultant by day, Nuxt team member, and also doing some content, especially on YouTube and Twitch, all around Vue.js and Nuxt.js. And with us, we have another amazing special guest today. He is an app and game developer. We'll talk about that in a little bit. He's also a designer and artist and the creator of the one and only Geotastic. Hey everybody, welcome, Eduard But.
Woo! Woo! Hello. Yeah, you already introed me very well. Right now, I'm basically a full-time indie game developer, I'd say, with a lot of side stuff on the side, basically.
Very important to mention, yeah, full-time into indie game development with Geotastic for how long now?
I think it's 4 years now. I think we are in the fourth year.
Oh,
almost. I think I started 2020 somewhat.
That's quite some time, indeed.
Yeah, I'm really interested to dig into this because Vue and game development don't seem like they go together that easily. So I'm interested to learn more.
Maybe let's start with a little bit earlier even. So because before you program games, you have to learn programming, right? So maybe like a little short overview of how you actually got into programming and maybe then also into web development.
Yeah, that's I'd say somewhat interesting because I never really had any formal education in programming. I remember being interested in that topic forever, basically. When the internet came out, I was eager to get into web development, like development, HTML development, people called it back in the day, and learned about PHP. That I think was one of my first real introductions into programming. We had some Delphi in school, informatic class. I'm not sure what
computer science class, I guess. Yeah,
computer science. Yeah, right. So I learned some Delphi programming there, and even earlier, I think I programmed some wild text adventures in BASIC. Wouldn't really call it programming. It was basically just stringing some go-to texts together and having prompts to select answers and stuff. So very, very basic, but at least getting into how to program actually, that helped a lot to get into it very early. After that basically stuck with me. I had an apprenticeship in a media agency where basically involved in everything from designing as well as maintaining and websites with their CMS stuff. So a lot of PHP, MySQL work basically, and some actual programming as well. So usually it was just maintaining, but sometimes we had to add some features to some open source CMS, for example. So there I actually got into programming properly, but still no formal education. So it was just learning by doing.
So you're doing like everything from design all the way to backend database, like the full stack.
Yeah. The fullest stack you can put into your backpack. Yeah.
Lovely. And how did you like that? Like, how did you like from building text adventure games in BASIC, and that we have the game development pattern there. I see. So like going, okay, now I have like everything everywhere at once, and have to maintain or also build all these things.
I think it's super interesting just by the sheer baseline that you have to know everything, like how everything works together to get that done, basically. So I'm not just having my blinders on and only working on front end, for example, and having no idea how problematic stuff could be if you have to tell somebody that you need feature X and Y in the back end to get stuff done. So if I want something like that, I have to deal with it myself. And then I might change stuff around in the front end as well, because I know it's in the back end that's going to be really problematic. There's a better solution for that. But of course, things take way longer if you do everything yourself. And of course, the learning experience also takes way more time than just focusing on one specific task or platform or that you want to deal with.
Makes sense. But also then, as you said, like, the whole package from like the start to beginning. And especially when building own things, it's really good to know, okay, as I'm responsible for everything, maybe at some point we have people like taking some parts over, but even like as a solo indie hacker, a solo self-run, you are that. You have to talk with the user base in some way of like, okay, what features, or like just think about what the user want to see. You have to build them yourself, bug fixes and so on. That goes through the whole application. Okay, and then after the apprenticeship in the media agency, what happened next?
Yeah, I was the agency itself moved to town, so I basically stayed where I was and had to find a new job. Found something very nice in a software firm here in Bonn, where I live basically, and they made software for photo printing solutions, basically for end users to, for example, print their photos on T-shirts, for example. So the software for that, basically, so user interface. I joined there as a designer, so basically UI design, for example. That was my main approach in the beginning. So I worked there for a couple of years in that department, basically. Then there was a huge shift towards Agile. The teams had been split up completely, so there was no design department anymore, but teams with specific domains. So they needed programmers and they needed design people in one team, for example. Everybody moved, and I joined a team where we dealt with specific things. And of course, since I was already very interested in programming, I also joined the ranks of that part of the team as well. So not only just designing stuff, UI, I also was involved in UX a lot, so UX testing and stuff. And was also involved in some feature development. Learned a lot of things, so that's also where I came in contact with Vue the first time.
Nice.
In that agile change. After a couple of years, in addition to that, I was a full stack developer at some point. So I just lost my designer badge and went full developer. But also still keeping the things clean and simple and designed as well. So of course, I cannot just shut up my my design background, obviously.
No. What was your first experience with Vue like at this company?
It's pretty vivid in my memory because I think it was some kind of efficiency week we had in the company. So it was like you get 1 week to build anything you want in the teams that you create yourself during that week. So people pitched their ideas, and then there was some kind of team finding event, and then people joined teams to create something. And I joined a team that was creating some front end for some parts of the testing environment more efficient. Let's keep it at that. And the question came about what are we going to do with the front end? And one of the lead developers just threw in, hey, let's use Vue. That sounds nice. I'm not sure if he worked with it before, but he just went all in and said, okay, this is Vue. Why not try it out while we're at it in that week? And that was my first experience. We had some kind of pre-constructed environments where you can just immediately start developing.
Like a little boilerplate or...
Boilerplate, yes,
yeah.
exactly. But some boilerplate code we threw in Bootstrap for Vue to get the some components ready immediately. And then, we just started working, learning in that week a lot about Vue, how it works, and me, of course, as well. And it stuck. It really stuck. It was super quick to understand, to learn. My only prior experience with JavaScript frontends was with Angular, but I didn't really program with Angular. I just had to check the code and see why some things worked the way they did, and it looked super complicated. I wasn't really a fan of just how it looked, basically. Having having the experience with Vue, it seemed way more efficient, way easier to get into. And then in that week we did some crazy stuff. It was amazing, and that's why I didn't really bother changing my way to work with front-end development, even though we later on also tried out React, for example. So I've also worked with React later down the line.
But you still stuck with Vue eventually.
Yeah. I just feel very, very at home with Vue. So
Makes sense.
Yeah, I've done a few of those like week-long hackathon style things at different companies, and it's always fascinating to see what people can do and accomplish in a short week, especially if there are no like requirements on testing or writing like good code. It's just like make a cool demo is the only thing, and then we'll see what maybe something is good enough that we want to like refine it later. But yeah, it's perfect time to try new things and experiment and see what's possible, and drink too much coffee and stay up late because you're just like so interested in what you're doing. It's good.
But that's the good part, as you mentioned, like you're really like you pick something, an idea you want to pursue that you're interested in. I think that's a big difference, because of course, like we usually when we work in a company with a product, of course we kind of like the product. Otherwise, I mean, at least for me, it would be a big factor if I also wouldn't be solo self-employed. But I also kind of do like the product in this case. Anyway, like but if you have a certain part, like, okay, I really see this is a problem, I want to improve that certain part, because for me personally, it might be a pain point, maybe not necessarily for other people or like the upper management, probably for some users still, like having the feeling, okay, hey, I have I can change something. It's really cool. And then from using Vue there more and more, we have a little bit of a time gap missing until going full-time self-founded game developer. So what happened in that time frame?
Geotastic wasn't even my first browser game I did. My first thing was, I think, when the pandemic started, I was getting into that stuff more. Probably, Alex, you might know it. Rocket Beans TV here in Germany is a online gaming television program basically. And when the pandemic hit, they couldn't do a lot of stuff. Like, for example, playing some games in the studio. And since that's basically, I think it's pretty close to after I got to know Vue a little better, that I thought to myself, why not try to create a Montagsmaler game? I'm not sure Montagsmaler in English would be...
I think it's more like most comparable to like Gartic Phone, I would say, but not exactly.
Not really.
Yeah. Maybe let's describe it. I'm looking for the word in the meantime. But yeah.
So basically, you draw something, a term that only you know, and you draw it, and you have the other people have to guess the word that you are drawing, basically. So that's the game, and the more the more terms are being guessed correctly, the more points you get as a team. That's the game basically, and I think there wasn't really a way to play that online, so you couldn't really do it online. So I programmed a game that basically simulated that experience to be played remotely, basically. And then I sent that over to the responsible people at Rocket Beans. They actually did play it then. They actually did do a remote session with my game. That was an amazing experience. I was completely hyped, and it did work. It didn't crash. It didn't break down. Luckily,
perfect.
For people who don't know, what is Rocket Beans?
So it's kind of hard to put into words. It's a production firm for gaming related content, basically. So they have different shows. They produce YouTube video and live streams, events and stuff. So they have a huge amount of people working on their stuff.
There were an actual like TV like broadcasts for like really like 24/7. They don't do that anymore, but they still do like lots of live content. They have I think like altogether probably about like more than 1 million subscribers. For, like maybe for Germany, that's pretty decent with like all their different channels.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of variables that had to be in the correct spot for everything to work out the way it did.
So and is that application still online? Like can people?
That is still online. Yeah, it's still completely. I'm not maintaining it anymore, but it's them montagsmaler -online.de.
We'll link it in the show notes, of course.
Yeah. So this was also my first approach or like a gateway into multiplayer server programming. So that's something I've never done before. I had no idea how to approach this. So this was also a very, very strong learning experience for me. I was always very interested in doing some kind of multiplayer service in any shape or form. And that was a great gateway into keeping me motivated and still having to learn all that stuff. Especially like, and this is not Vue, obviously. It's written in Node.js, so it stayed in JavaScript just to keep things as simple as possible for me, and try to find out how this actually works. So on a technical level. So I'm not a good like multiplayer service programmer or something. It's probably pretty bad in terms of performance, efficiency, but and whatnot. But it works. It works in the scope I set myself to achieve.
I mean, that's the most important part, right? Like you had a scope, you were building a project, learning things, but also using what you learned, which is in my opinion always the best way to learn, because like you have a goal, you figure out new things. And I mean, it's an amazing achievement. Like, okay, a channel with like in the end, like hundreds of thousands of subscribers probably back then. Like, hey, yeah, let's use the tool, and then probably other people saw too, and so on, so on. So that's amazing.
Was there anything specific that you remember learning about multiplayer servers and coordinating all of that, like between the different browsers and the clients, and like, was there some like big problem that came up, or was it like mostly smooth sailing for the most part, or like do you have any lesson that you learned from that?
In general, I think it worked pretty much as I expected it to be. So I obviously it's I'm not even sure if there's any other ways to do it, but it's with WebSockets, obviously. So I guess that's probably the most efficient way to do stuff like that for browser-based multiplayer games. I had some expectations in my mind when going in, and it pretty much fit all my expectations in terms of technical limitations and how to approach all these problems. I think the major issue was in terms of data transfer. So how much data can I transfer in which frequency to not bottleneck the server application,
Right.
because as more players come into the application, more data has to be sent around to the players, and like information like the drawing interactions, so the people can see live what the other person is drawing. That can get pretty expensive in terms of payloads.
Yeah.
So I had to find a way to limit the amount of data to be sent. So it's basically only the differences are being sent out, so not the whole image. So it's all vector based in the game itself. So I only have to send out the new vector information that the person drawing did in a set amount of time. So I think it's like once per second or something I'm sending things over. So it's not live. It's with a delay of 1 second. So it looks a bit choppy on the other end, but at least the server holds out then.
And it's close enough to live, so
yeah, it's
playable.
enough.
Very lovely. So then your first multiplayer game came to life, and from there you moved on to probably what is yet your biggest project.
Yes, absolutely. I think so. It has to be the same year, right? So I think it was like late 2020. Should have been. I think I released it in 2020. So this also is due to the fact that Rocket Beans played GeoGuessr on the programming. So they had this this format called GeoBattle, where they played GeoGuessr in different like scenarios, different people and stuff. So we enjoyed this basically in our little friend group and watched the programming. And of course, we wanted to play that as well, obviously. That's when I saw that they, I think it was at the point where it already was not free anymore. So I went to the page and saw that they wanted some subscription to be able to actually play it properly. So they had some very, very small free tier that wasn't really the way I wanted to play it. It was kind of disappointing to see that I couldn't just play it. And yeah, had the stupid idea to just build my own geography game.
How hard could it be?
Exactly. How hard could it be? I just lay in my bed and figured out like what would I need to do it. I already had some experience with Google, the Google API, so I knew how that worked. Didn't work with Streetview so far, but I know it's basically the same, just a different API. It should be fine. Placing some markers, getting some coordinates. How hard can it be?
Mm-hmm. And here we are a couple of years later. But before we go more in depth about Geotastic, so you mentioned GeoGuessr, we mentioned Geotastic already, which is the big project, just to name it one more time. But maybe it would be good for everyone not familiar with any of the two games to just briefly explain what exactly, like what type of game are this, what's like the goal. So that would be, I think, a good starting point before diving into the technical parts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the best short term to describe it would be geography quiz game. That's how I describe it, at least. So it's a geography / educational experience with the main goal to identify random street view streets scenarios that you are being dropped into. Identify to the best of your knowledge where you are exactly. So you look around, walk around, search for clues, and then you make a educated guess on a normal standard Google map, and then you get points for how good you were, how close, how close you got to the actual position of that street view panorama that you got.
I've seen like TikToks of people who have gotten extraordinarily good at this and can get like eerily close based on what seems like no clues at all, really, and it's quite insane.
Yeah. The thing, if you look at it, you don't see any clues, but the pro players, they see everything. They see the camera quality. They see some kind of weird antennas on the Google cars. They see some electric pole in the distance, and they know exactly where in Brazil you are.
It's fascinating.
Not a problem.
But I mean, it's in general, it's a really fun game, especially either to play with randoms or your friends. Like I played every now and then, if like with random people or if my friends want to play with me, which is rare. So if everyone wants to play around, I think any of us would be all up to that. And yeah, it's a very lovely idea of also like getting to know places of the world where you never have been, or just like getting gist of like where you might want to go because it looks that interesting. So yeah, all in all, it's pretty fascinating. Plus, you learn a lot about countries, flags, streets,
languages, especially also.
Oh yeah,
and you learn about countries that you've never even knew existed back before you played any geography game, basically, but Geotastic especially. It's always fun to being dropped into some weird remote island, and then people would say, "What is this? I've never heard of this before."
That's true. So yeah, okay. So you started building it because GeoGuessr was not had like a mini freemium tier. I think nowadays that doesn't exist anymore either.
It's completely gone now. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I was of course using both every now and then. And someone's like, okay, GeoGuessr not free anymore. It was a bit sad. But nevertheless, Geotastic is here, and you decided to work on that without asking for like a subscription or similar.
Yeah, I personally hate subscriptions. So I try to put my money where my mouth is and pay what you want basically, and you can like increase your donation amounts on your account, and you can see how much you played, how much that costed me personally, and then you can make an educated guess on how much you maybe want to donate to the project to at least like, for example, cover your own costs, and then get some stuff in return for your support.
That's a really cool idea of showing the cost to the end user, because I think people don't realize that there is a cost to websites, especially if you're using different APIs. And I've heard that the Maps API got more expensive in the last few years, and so it's good to know.
And I also think in a way it's like what you show, like just to make sure of that, like you have the API cost as like the cost is probably the highest. Then of course you have like servers to make the backend and everything running. But in the donation, like, okay, maybe like the domain, like website is like a tiny fraction. But what's with your, let's say, your own seller, because you also have to pay your bills, right? So is that also factored into that?
Somewhat. The cost per play basically. So once you connect to the API is a estimated cost basically. So I think it's like 1.5 cents I throw in there for each connection basically. So that's not actually the cost of a single connection in Google, but I think it's the combined connection plus like, I don't know, some additional percent to cover everything else.
So it's kind of marked up in that. But if you like have a look at the like monthly cost, then you have like the API, the servers, and so on.
Yeah.
But that it's not in there, right? In the monthly overview.
No. That's correct. Yeah. Not all the income in this diagram. So I have this diagram in game where you can see the daily cost, the daily donations, the daily ad revenue, and stuff. So you can. It's completely transparent. You can see how high my bills are and how high the user donations are and stuff. But there's also some additional income that is not in there. For example, the merchandise shop stuff is not in there. Additional partnerships. I have a partnership with Wetter.de that is not in there, for example. So there's additional things that come on top that are not visualized there, but that help get me through the day.
Makes sense, because someone has to pay, or you have to pay your bills too.
Yeah, right. I also have to live. I have to eat. I have to shower every once in a while.
Yeah,
everything costs money nowadays, sadly.
So the differences between Geotastic and GeoGuessr, is it mostly the pricing model where Geotastic is donation based, or are there other features that you've added that change the functionality?
Yeah, to be completely honest, I haven't checked in with the GeoGuessr since forever. So I only really checked in with the GeoGuessr when I started out building the game itself. So I checked, okay, how does it work in general? Is there anything I have to make sure works the same way, for example? And after that, I really didn't check in with any of it. So the community itself oftentimes gives me some updates on stuff they did. Usually it's if they do something bad, then they will tell me that expect more players soon, for example.
and don't do that yourself, please.
Yeah. So there seem to be some issues, but they also did some good things that people request that I also put into Geotastic. For example, some mode with the HP bar, so you have some kind of life that you lose or can regenerate during a competitive play, stuff like that is in the on the feature lists. But I don't really go about to copy everything they do. That's absolutely not how I approach Geotastic. I usually just punch things in that I want to have in Geotastic. and not run to copy everything the other people do.
I'm sure it's way more fun to do it that way than to just copy it blindly.
And probably you also like if like not looking at it also doesn't give you the risk of just like getting closer to, let's say, quote unquote, just being a copy of GeoGuessr, because I mean, I also don't know all the features of platforms, but I still see that there are quite some unique parts on either of that, at least when I checked the last time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure GeoGuessr does not have a mode where you can guess the country by its coat of arms, which was added very, very recently. Yes, I think last week or something. So yeah, that's stuff that people like to play. Someone mentioned that on the Discord, and I thought, yeah, it shouldn't be too hard. We already have flags in there. Should just swap out the flags with coat of arms. Someone from the community helped with the collecting every coat of arm, and then I just threw them in. Had to change a bit of code to make it work a little more efficiently, and then that went live.
Pretty fun. So also like the work with the community is pretty close, as in like you really like listen to the people that are actively playing, you hear them, you want to like basically build with them together in a way.
I'm not sure if that's normal that people are like the developers so close with the community on a game. I like it this way, even though it can be very exhausting at times, of course, because the more people play the game, the more feedback you get, and it gets very hard to like filter stuff out and see everything that's actually maybe more important than other things. People also, of course, get angry more easily if you have more people on a platform. If you change something, because I of course also had to change stuff in terms of the free tiers every once in a while. The more players come in, the more expensive everything gets, and that's also something I'm not very happy about, but it's just the reality. I think it's like 3 months prior, I changed limited some of the free tier to get the donations back up to a level where I can sustain the game, which worked pretty well, even though a lot of people complained very loudly about that, like, oh, it's not going to work, blah, 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 blah. It worked pretty well, and I'm pretty happy that I can now like sleep again without having to think about bankruptcy every day.
Ultimately, it's for the best for the game if you can actually keep working on it and it can keep running.
The only other alternative would have been to just shut it down and get back into normal work. So I think it's better for everybody the way it came to be now.
Were there any interesting things that you had to build with Vue for this game that were fun or interesting in some way that you can tell us about?
In terms of like front end components, I'm not too sure if there was something that stood out to me very much. I used quite a lot of third-party components as well. So I'm working with Vuetify for the main components. That helped a lot to get things off the road pretty quickly, especially the whole table components and stuff. Working out of the box pretty well, but also the diagram stuff,
or like Chart.js or height charts.
I think it's a Chart.js. Yeah, I'm using that on a couple of components.
I mean, probably like from the game perspective, the whole like handling of the Streetview, like the showcasing that controls, like maybe something of that would be very, let's say, unique in terms of the project.
Yeah, maybe. But that's not really like fun. It's more like work to get everything done, because the biggest issue is like, of course, if you are on a browser, you never know what kind of screen resolution people are going in, or even are they on their tablet, or the game also works on phones, but very, very badly. It is responsive to some extent, especially in the actual game loop. So that was pretty difficult to get done in terms of UI scaling. changing the views around Streetview, the guess map. If you are on a phone, it's completely different from when you are on a desktop, for example, or tablet with a bigger screen. So this is all basically one page that will react to the way the browser is sized, and that was kind of tricky. But I wouldn't call it fun.
Necessary, let's say.
Very,
sure.
It's necessary, and still, I'm not sure if that it was actually worth it. I'd rather not have people play it on a phone. It's a way worse experience, especially like playing with your finger. Is not recommended at all. Doesn't work well, especially when like trying to pinpoint smaller countries quickly. It's basically impossible. So you have to zoom in. It's everything is very small. It's just not. It's not fun.
I mean, it probably works if you play with your friends in like a private lobby and everybody's playing on their phones.
Yeah, maybe.
But okay, so folks, if you want to try it on PC or a tablet.
Absolutely,
that might be more fun. And like, let's talk a bit more about the technical side in terms of, so you started the project back in 2020. Now it's more or less 4 years later. Did you have like any big technical challenges, especially in terms of the front end now with the like, okay, Vue 3 is a thing now. How did that go eventually?
When I started out, I built the game on Vue 2 with Vuetify. So I'm not sure when Vue 3 was released to the wild. Was it a year later or 2 years? I'm not sure.
I think something like that, yeah. I also don't know exactly. It's almost, I mean, Composition API is almost 4 years old. I think like end of 2020, 2021, something like that.
Sounds
right.
Be. So, and I also built everything on Vuex. Of course, I'd love to have upgraded the game to Vue 3. That's on the horizon at least. So I will do that eventually, probably. But right now I just can't really muster up the time to do that. I did some smaller things to approach that goal at least. I think it was last year when I swapped out Vuex with Pinia. I didn't really like how Vuex worked, especially in terms of working with TypeScript. It was a pain, and Pinia is way better and more streamlined. I liked it way better. So yeah, that's in there. I also swapped out Webpack with what's it called again?
Vite.
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much. You know it better than I do, apparently.
No, I mean, what people swap out is usually that. You don't say I swap out Webpack 4 with 5. So
yeah. So that's also the usual approach if you build a Vue 3 app, right? So this Vite is the way to go. So that's also already in there. I'd love to have everything on Vue 3. I think it would also be possible to upgrade to Vue 3 without really changing much, right? In terms of the component logic. I think you can still use a lot of the old stuff without breaking anything, and then upgrade everything to Composition API, for example, component by component. But I just didn't find the time to just like set my mind to do it yet. So, but it's definitely somewhere on my internal roadmap.
I think it's a great point to bring up of the technical debt and like not being able to upgrade, because it seems a lot of the time like everyone is on Vue 3 and Nuxt 3 and soon Nuxt 4, everyone will be on Nuxt 4, but it's just like not the case, because it's so hard. You're trying to like actually run an actual production application and fix bugs and maintenance and all these things. And so like upgrading is a huge task most of the time. And so you have to find time for that, and it can be hard. And so for everyone out there who is feeling sad that they're the only ones still on Vue 2 or Nuxt 2 or something, you're not. You're
definitely not.
You're in good company. So
I mean,
absolutely.
That's also the part. Like I see tons of Vue 2 and Nuxt 2 applications in my daily business as web engineering consultant because people are like, okay, we want to upgrade. Can you help us? Also because as Michael said, it's not that easy. If it would just be Vue, it would be probably done pretty quickly. But then it starts with, okay, I upgrade Vue, then I have to find all the like replacement dependencies for my current dependencies.
Oh yeah.
And like with Vueify, same idea. They don't have feature parity yet on Vue 3, so some components might not be usable, and then finding alternatives. So it's a real rabbit hole, which especially when people's like, oh yeah, just migrate, it's fine. They don't necessarily see the depth of the whole.
Yeah.
And also, this was one thing I picked up on Reddit recently, where people saying like, yeah, migrating from options to composition API gives like zero value for the user. And that's another thing, like, technical depth, like finding it is important because at some point building features might like it slower and slower, sure. But also what's the user value there? Like how much is the change? Like switching, if you'd be on Vue 3 already and just saying, okay, I write a component in way A or way B, might not be the big deal. Switching frameworks, okay, you can say better performance, like unlock maybe certain libraries you can't use right now. But if it's purely about the API, not necessary. You don't even have to migrate.
And that's also why it's so prioritized like lowly on my roadmap, because people would probably not even notice if I was like working like, let's say 2 months on migrating to Vue 3, changing, replacing Vueify completely, fixing all the breaking changes they did on their components, because I'm using that extensively. So that's it's a huge chunk of work probably to go through everything and see if it still works. And then the other components, of course, and stuff. And then it would go live and people wouldn't even notice probably.
Yeah, just like, okay, nothing changed. Maybe it got a tiny bit faster, but probably the limit is not Vue. It's usually the API, right? So, but and how does it look in the backend? Like, do you have like how is the structure and the whole scenario there?
Oh,
I'm very curious.
The backend is an interesting topic. So I'm not a very good backend developer, way worse than I am a front-end developer. Also, no formal education. Obviously, I learned PHP. That was my home base. So I also went in and made everything in the backend with PHP and MySQL, because that's basically what I knew back in the day. I didn't even know you could write backends with anything else, for example, and I had no idea how I would go about it. So just ordering a hoster, having PHP and MySQL at your disposal, that was the quickest way to get a backend up and running. So that's still there, still probably pretty badly written, but it works. It works somewhat. It's fine. People hate or love PHP. I'm just happy that it works as easy as it does for me. I'm not sure how you all think about PHP. I think that's a whole other topic probably.
Yeah, true. But I mean, also there, like it works. That's the most important part. I mean, I started with PHP. I like it. I don't use it that much anymore because everything in JavaScript, like we have most of the things there, even though if I look at Laravel sometimes, and also that was like a big, let's say, drama on Twitter at the moment. Not sure if you two have seen it. Like, oh yeah, like the whole front end framework world versus, oh yeah, Rails and Laravel and so on. But
right.
I'm not a big fan of like these polarizing topics as in, oh, you have to go all in PHP or Rails versus. But anyway, I really think it's the most important part. It works. It makes sense. And it's in software you can maintain, right?
Yeah.
The other interesting question there would be how many, like if you have the numbers, if you know them like by heart or have like rough estimates, how many players you have, like let's say daily or peak or whatever the relevant numbers are there.
Okay, so I know that I have like 1.5 million user registrations in total. That obviously include a lot of dead accounts as well as non-confirmed accounts. I really need to clean up that stuff at some point. On a daily basis, at least I can tell you how many API connections. So that's basically a one-to-one transformation in terms of how many people play the game and cost me money, for example.
Yeah.
So for example. I think the Fridays are the most busy days. So one day, for example, did cost me like 404 euros. That is one of the more expensive days, which is absolutely crazy.
It is.
If I divide that by 1.5, which is the cost per player, no, like 0 point.
0 point.
Yeah. The one is euro, the other one is cent. So we had like 27,000 players on that day, like connected to the API once. So I don't know how many games they played, because once you are connected, you can play as much as you want without generating any more costs. So they could have been playing the whole day or just one game. I don't know, but it was 27,000 per day on that.
These are like
day.
Unique players as well.
Yes.
Wow.
It could be the same one, like coming back later that day and playing again. That would generate another cost on my end, so that would come up in that diagram as well.
Okay, but I mean, these are impressive numbers in the end. And especially with like all the people like playing together, because they won't be like evenly distributed along the day. That's like something that the front end and the back end, of course, as well have to hold up.
Actually not sure how it holds up at all, but it does. I am right now within we are moving servers right now, so right now checking if the backend runs on the new server properly. There are some things I have to deal with. And then hopefully we can move everything to a more potent server infrastructure very, very soon. Because you can tell that the hosting is struggling a lot of times. The downtimes do increase since I think it was February when GeoGuessr switched off their free tier, and you can really tell by my numbers when that happened. When the player numbers are increasing by the month. Last May was a new record in terms of expenses, over 10,000 euros of Google bill. The month before, what was 8,000? The month before that was 7,500. The month before 6,000. So I'm increasing my bill by like 1,000 euros per month right now. So hopefully it will level at some point.
Hopefully the donations increase.
The donations are on par with the increased bills.
Good.
So I can still sleep fine. So it's all good. It's all good.
That's very nice to hear. Also, on that note, because that's what I did as soon as I discovered that option back, I don't know when I registered. It's been a while. You can also use your own Google API key, and the Google API has a free tier. So technically, most of your users wouldn't even cost you money if they would use that. So that might be also an interesting thing to like mention, as in like a way to reduce your costs by just people using their own keys.
Yeah, that's actually the best way for me personally for players to support the game, because you can also like set it up in the way that that key is also used with all your friends, for example. So if your friends play the game, they will get to use your key and not the one from Geotastic, for example.
So don't share it with everyone.
No, just your friends.
Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So if you have a couple of friends that also play, and you want that they also don't generate any costs on my end, then you can set that up, and you also get something in return. So you get you don't get any more ads, so you get the ad-free experience. Unlock a couple of things, bigger lobbies, and other things. So
nice.
Giving back to the people that help out is very important.
It's a give and take. Yeah, true.
One thing I want to mention that you brought it up before, that you were saying you weren't so comfortable with the back end. You just like you knew PHP, and so you just like went with that. And I think it's interesting, and it's wonderful to see that you just decided to go for it anyway, and you built this thing, and now you've got 20,000, 30,000 games being played each day, depending on the day, and like all these people having fun because you just decided to go for it, and you didn't let that hold you back. That you were like, well, can you build multiplayer games in PHP? Well, turns out you can. So
At least in terms of API, yeah. So that worked.
But it's a really good point, and Michael mentioned, like, in the end, it's really not about, okay, we have to choose our most sophisticated architecture straight away. Something is really just about, okay, I have an idea and I want to do it. And I mean, also, you saw the need was there, and it was, at least for you and your friends, like, okay, I want to play that game. We don't want to pay money. Let's build it on our own. And apparently more and more people were interested as well. And also through the Rocket Beans, once again, was a very good way to at least give a little bit of reach and audience to the project.
Yeah, that was a great way to get the game like shared around a bit. At least in the beginning, it was I think it was locked behind a password system when I first released it to make sure that the Google costs did not explode immediately.
Yeah,
that was a good take, I think. So I was able to control the user flow a bit, and I iron out some of the issues I had in there in terms of how the Google API was accessed, because there was a huge issue in there in the beginning where there was a new connection for every round that people played. So that cost every single round that people played a new 0.007 and 0.114 microcents or something was added to the bill. And so I did not reuse the Google connection back then. And it worked out with a very, very low player base to keep everything in the free tier. But once the game was opened up, I saw that it didn't work pretty well, and I had to fix that pretty quickly before my Google bills would explode.
And still, they are quite high. But how high would they be otherwise?
Yeah, in the millions probably.
That's also crazy. Also, given once again it's donation based, and you added some ads. Like, I think that's the only thing I remember that changed. And when you added ads back then, and said like, okay, you didn't plan on that, but also to like cover part of the cost.
People actually asked for that, so that was user requested basically. Can't you put ads in there? I can't donate. Maybe that would help to at least support the game to some extent. And then it was kind of also give and take. And now the ads do pay a chunk of the costs, so that it definitely helps. And I absolutely understand that people, especially in countries that have lower valued currency, that it's way more difficult to muster up the money to cover your costs, because Google doesn't care where you're from. The API costs are all the same, so I have to pay the Google price. Doesn't matter where you're from.
And also that you're allowed to disable the ads for people with a higher support tier, so like that people are not forced to see them if they want to contribute that way. I think it's really cool. But also, what an audience you have! So like, hey, please put ads on there. Like, I want to contribute that way. That's so good. Like, what a healthy community. Like, honestly, this is a big shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. The community is definitely super supportive. Very, very great. It's one of the big drivers for me to keep going is how supportive people are, writing nice messages in the PayPal donations and stuff. Especially during the pandemic, Geotastic was a great gateway for people to connect with their friends overseas, for example, or if they couldn't go on holiday or vacation, then they could at least do it within the game and play with friends. So stuff like that did reach me, and it really helps to keep my mood up.
Absolutely, that you see that you make an impact in a way.
Yeah.
All right. Should we slowly but surely wrap it up? We're on for over an hour now. Are there is there anything, as I asked at the beginning, is there anything that we should have maybe asked, but you're like, hey, why didn't you ask that?
Yeah.
Anything if we missed out?
we could go into the running gag of the ranked competitive mode that is still not back in Geotastic. I'm still working on
this was on my list actually.
when ranked.
When ranked.
Soon. soon.
Soon TM. Okay, but like, do you can say like, I don't know, this year 2024?
I really hope we can get it done this year, because it's also hard on me. I really don't like having this whole branch lying around and rotting away, getting more difficult to reintegrate with every day.
Merge conflicts everywhere.
I keep the branch updated every once in a while, but it's such a huge mess. It's way more stuff in there that people might consider in the beginning, because the cheating is a huge problem in these kinds of games. So people are cheating. It is as it is, and there's no way to control that. So I have to put in systems that makes it easier for the moderators to identify cheaters, like distinguish them from actual good players. That's not in the game yet. It's coming. It's coming. Like we have like a couple of features already implemented to log all the games that are played in matchmaking down to the pin they place on the map, so people can actually like go through the games, see if there's something suspicious going on that a good pro player wouldn't fall into, like a trap or something. So that has to go in there. There's some minor issues with the matchmaking still going on. Sometimes the games crash and then people lose their progress or something. So that also has to get out of there first before the big release. And the bigger the audience is, the more pressure is on me to get it working perfectly, especially in terms of progression and items that you can get for leveling up and stuff. So it's so much work, so much content that needs to get into the game. And of course, that's all next to the maintenance, bug fixes, and other features that I personally want to have in the game. So I'm not really someone who would play ranked myself. So it's pretty hard to get my ass up and work on it.
Totally makes sense. And also, I mean, the whole topic of pressure with too many users, I think especially also in the tech world with like library authors, framework maintainers, like it's very similar. Like, okay, you don't want to release that new version unless it's polished and it's tested and it works, because you don't want to like, cause terrible problems for your users. So that's definitely another thing which is very comparable. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to new rank modes when it will be out. Now we know, hopefully 2024. But it's also, as you said, like there's like such a long tail on that. Like you have all these things that you only think about as soon as you actually deal with the issue.
Yep. A huge can of worms, sadly.
Indeed. Edo, is there anything else besides the ranked? Any new features you wanna spoil here?
I mean, there are some actually we could spoil some stuff. Of course, nice. The community is always very eager to give me ideas. I think in the last community event we had this mode where you get several drops around a country or Europe or something, and you have to guess the midpoint of those. So you get one, for example, it's one in Berlin, and you get one in Warsaw, Poland, and then you have to, of course, check both drops, see where am I in both, roughly. Maybe even you can find out where exactly, and then you have to find the midpoint. So it's a little twist on the general idea of the game. Makes it a little more challenging and maybe even a little more random, because maybe you are in Poland, but you don't know you are in Warsaw. So you have to like find a good middle point between Berlin and Poland. Maybe you can region guess it's North Poland, then you have a little better understanding where the midpoint would be. And then, of course, if you increase the amount of drops that you have to check, things get even more chaotic. So we played this. We winged the mode basically with the normal detective map mode in the community event, but this will become an actual mode to play. So that you can also see the reference drops on the result map and stuff. So that's not in there yet. That's going to be fun, I think, because that involves some interesting geometry calculations and stuff. So
For sure, for sure. Lovely.
And a lot of other stuff, but the list is long, the day is short.
Of course. And there are so many things one can work on. So awesome. I think that the last question we would like to ask is, Edu, where can people follow you? Where, like, if people are interested, where should people go to find out everything about it?
So I'm not a huge social media guy. So you can follow me on Instagram the most. I have a personal account on Instagram as well as a Geotastic account. I'm not sure how it's called, Geotastic Official or something. But we'll
put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. But the best way to follow me is actually on Twitch, because that's where I occasionally stream. And I also do development streams there, play some games. Also, of course, the community events, which are once a month, where we are playing Geotastic with a huge lobby with up to 100 people at the time. Also, Gartic Phone. Since I'm a design guy, I also love to draw. So we are playing Gartic Phone as well, which is always fun. So yeah, that's the perfect time to join in the fray and get to know me a little better. It's on Twitch. And of course the Discord, but that's also a lot. So I tend not to check in with the Discord because that would take all the
years,
time of my day. The complete day would be gone if I was following everything onto the Discord.
No, that doesn't work. Yeah, we know in like Vue land and Nux Discord, it's impossible to read every message. Yeah. Anyway, and of course, besides that, geotastic.net, the URL also in the show notes.
So most of the game is still completely free. Only the custom local game and the custom online games are locked behind the first supporter level if the community is not able to cover all the costs. So once the costs are covered for the month, everything is completely free. So that's another thing that goes into the game. Once everything is crowdfunded, everything can be played without any issue.
That's even more amazing. Like it's just such a nice way of like giving back. So like, okay, hey, I just want to break even, make a little bit more. And then we're good. Then you can use everything of that. Crazy. All right. I think that's a wrap. Thanks everyone for listening. Definitely check out Geotastic and Edu streams if you can catch them, plus the community events. Tune in into older episodes if this was the first one you heard, or the second one, or the third. We have quite a backlog nowadays. And of course, stay tuned for the next episode weekly. Every Thursday they are in. So stay tuned and. Listen to you, talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.